Hello, please like and subscribe to my channel. Adulting means slowly realizing you need balance between childhood dreams and reality. Those castles you built in the sky start crumbling as life's harsh truths hit you, each painful slap across the face clearing your mind a little more. I thought I'd cracked life's cheat code. You know the one: steady income, stable job, house, marriage, kids. I believed I'd reached the pinnacle of success. But everything fell apart when we exchanged our vows. That's when my wife unleashed the fury she'd bottled up during our dating days. The only honeymoon phase our marriage ever saw was mere hours before our wedding night. Anger, alcoholism, chasing her old party life, that's all Anna cared about anymore. She dropped her mask faster than Kim Kardashian's first marriage collapsed. Theirs at least lasted 42 days. As her mask fell, a clown mask rose to fit my face perfectly. Anna was already pregnant with Nancy, our first and only child. From then on, I became a single father. Anna returned to the party scene before her recovery period even ended, leaving me solely responsible for Nancy. The sleepless nights, constant crying, allergies, formula prep, diaper changes, Nancy's around-the-clock needs nearly broke me. While grasping for any remaining threads of sanity, I still had to work 9 to 5 to keep us afloat. Working from home became my saving grace, the only thing that kept some semblance of normalcy alive. The nights hit hardest. When Nancy cried her heart out, I'd end up doing the same. I'd break down completely, wondering what kind of life I was living. I used every ounce of strength to hold this sham marriage together, hoping Nancy could at least have a complete family. But it was pointless, like everything else Anna touched. The truth was, Anna never wanted marriage. She just needed one to unlock her trust fund. I was merely a checkbox on her list. Love never entered the equation. The terms were clear. She had to be legally married to a man with a stable income and have at least one child who was 6 years old to access her $2.5 million inheritance. The moment Nancy turned 6, Anna claimed her money and disappeared. Her parents were devastated by their daughter's behavior. For years, Nancy had been feeding them heartbreaking stories about my supposed neglect as a father, claiming she had to handle everything alone. She painted herself as helpless, unable to work, unable to rely on me, sobbing into the phone that she was at her breaking point. Her parents, aching for their daughter, sent her $15,000 every month to support her and Nancy. They had no idea what was really happening. Once Anna secured her trust fund, she cut off all contact with them completely. This sudden silence didn't sit well with her parents. How could she just vanish like that? They'd grown accustomed to Anna's weekly calls, and when the silence stretched on, they began to suspect something terrible. That I had harmed their daughter to steal the $2.5 million. After filing police reports and hiring private detectives, the investigation results stunned them. They discovered I had been desperately trying to reach them for 5 years, but Anna had blocked my number from their phones. A month after Anna left, I finally heard from my in-laws during our road trip to Disneyland. "Hello, who is this?" "James, it's me," came a sobbing voice. "Alice, Anna's mom?" "Oh, hello, mother-in-law. What do I owe the pleasure of the call?" "MMH." She hesitated, her voice thick with emotion. "James, we want to visit you and Nancy." I told them Nancy and I were out but would be home in about 3 hours. I mentioned that I hadn't changed my address and they still had their keys to the house, a gift I'd personally given to both sets of parents during our wedding. Alice started sobbing harder and abruptly hung up. My in-laws arrived at my house 25 minutes later, just as the security notification chimed on my phone. Through the cameras, I watched them enter awkwardly, unsure where to go or what to do. They stopped and stared at the family photos of Nancy and me hanging in the living room, a time capsule capturing Nancy's growth through the years. What shocked me most was that my in-laws didn't recognize their own granddaughter in the pictures. "Job, who is this?" Alice called to her husband, her voice breaking. "This isn't the girl in Anna's photos. Could it be that Anna never even showed us our real granddaughter?" The revelation hit Alice so hard she fainted. Job rushed to carry his wife to the nearest sofa, frantically giving her first aid. After a few agonizing minutes, she came to, her face pale with the weight of understanding. "Job, let's find some of the girls' hair and get a paternity test done before they return," she whispered urgently. My father-in-law searched through the house and slipped into Nancy's room, collecting several hair strands from her pillow and grabbing her toothbrush. A rush paternity test would take exactly the 3 hours I'd told them we'd be gone. Being multimillionaires, this was no challenge for my in-laws. Within that time frame, they had results confirming Nancy was indeed their granddaughter. That's when they spotted a photo on the living room table showing Nancy hugging her best friend Joanna, with Joanna's parents on the left and me on the right. Alice immediately recognized Joanna's mom, Monica, as Anna's friend, and suddenly the pieces fell into place. Anna had been photoshopping her face over her friend's daughter in pictures she sent to my in-laws. They were furious at their daughter's deception, but they didn't have time to process these emotions. We walked through the door. Nancy screamed, "Dad, who are these people in our house?" That broke my in-laws completely. "Nancy, sweetheart, these are your grandparents," I explained gently. She shouted back, "But I know Papa and Nana, they don't look like them." "No, baby, these are your mama's parents." "I don't have a mama." She bolted straight to her room, leaving the elderly couple crying and trembling. It was a painful topic for Nancy. My parents had died a year earlier, and she was still grieving their loss. I ushered them inside and poured glasses of water. We caught up on life over the past couple of years, the conversation heavy with unspoken sorrow. They offered their condolences and apologized for missing my parents' funeral. I reassured them that the past was behind us. My parents were in heaven, watching over us all. When they glanced toward Nancy's door, they sighed heavily, carrying a mountain of regrets. I encouraged them that it wasn't too late to build a relationship with their granddaughter. They moved states to be closer to us, pouring all their remaining love into Nancy. With their arrival, I could finally breathe again. They encouraged me to pursue higher education, to be more than just Nancy's father, to still be myself. I wondered when I'd last had a conversation that didn't center on Nancy. I'd lost touch with friends. I even wondered who James was anymore. Looking in the mirror, I saw a 27-year-old father of a 6-year-old staring back. But beyond that, who was I? My in-laws bought a mansion in my name and moved in with Nancy and me. They structured it this way so I wouldn't feel like a guest in their house. I applied for my master's and got accepted into a PhD program. This opened doors to high-paying jobs and countless opportunities for side projects and investments. Within 5 years of living together, I'd repaid them the full cost of the house plus interest. They wanted to refuse the money, but I thanked them for the love and effort they'd invested in our family of 4. We enjoyed 2 more blissful years until tragedy struck again. My in-laws died within a week of each other. This brought the long-forgotten Anna back into our lives. And who crashed the funeral, sobbing and hurling accusations at me? Anna. She claimed I'd brainwashed her parents against her and stolen her daughter. Fortunately, my in-laws had prepared for this moment by recording a video that played at the service's opening. "Hello, we are Job and Alice, of sound mind and body, parents to one prodigal daughter who ignored us and abandoned her child from birth. Thankfully, she blessed us with a wonderful son-in-law who's become like a true son, and an angel of a granddaughter. You might wonder why we recorded this message. We both have cancer and have chosen to pursue only alternative treatment. At 80 years old, we've lived full, joyful lives. We're grateful we could make amends for our past mistakes through our granddaughter Nancy and our son James. We're donating 55% of our estate to various charities, with James serving as executor of our entire will. The remaining 45% will be split between James and Nancy. Nancy will receive a letter on her 18th birthday explaining our decision, along with access to a trust fund we've established for her. Nancy, we love you and will always watch over you. To our son James, we apologize for those 5 terrible years when we misjudged and misunderstood you. Please forgive us, we're entrusting you with our legacy. With love, Job and Alice." Since the funeral attendees had already witnessed this video, they simply ignored Anna. Following her parents' final wishes regarding her potential attendance, Anna was quietly escorted to a separate room to watch the recording privately. There, alone with her parents' final words, she screamed and cursed them at the top of her lungs. 3 months passed before everything changed. Nancy's behavior shifted dramatically. She became short-tempered, distant, and disrespectful toward me. I told myself it was just typical teenage rebellion, grief manifesting in anger. I was dead wrong. The call from her school shattered that illusion completely. When I arrived, the principal's and counselor's stern faces told me everything I needed to know before they even spoke. "Mr. James," the principal began carefully, "Nancy has shared some very disturbing allegations with us." My heart sank as they explained how Nancy claimed I'd been physically abusing her. Worse still, she had systematically injured herself, punching and pinching her own body over the course of a week to create convincing evidence. "We understand you're grieving your in-law's death," the counselor added, "but that doesn't excuse beating your daughter. She's even told us she's afraid you might kill her to steal her inheritance." Their words hit me like a freight train. I promised to speak with Nancy immediately and clear up what had to be a terrible misunderstanding. But Nancy's accusations only escalated. The counselor had no choice but to involve Child Protective Services. 4 months later, a court summons arrived. My ex-wife was fighting for custody of the daughter she'd abandoned 15 years earlier. Somehow, she won partial custody and forced her way back into our lives. The constant conflict sent Nancy's grades plummeting from straight A's to B's, then C's, and finally complete failure across all subjects. This academic collapse threatened everything. Nancy's inheritance required maintaining straight A's and gaining admission to an Ivy League school, requirements her grandparents had set deliberately. They'd feared easy access to money would corrupt her, turning her into another version of her mother. That painful comparison was spelled out clearly in the letter they'd left behind. I tried tightening her discipline with stricter curfews, but at 17, this only fueled her rebellion. Then came the moment that shattered everything: police officers dragging me out of a multi-billion-dollar pitch meeting in handcuffs. The charge? Attempted rape of a minor. "I've never done anything like that," I protested. "The only minor I even interact with is my own daughter." "She's the one who accused you," the officer shouted back. "Why act shocked when you've been walking in on her in the shower and watching her sleep? You're a sick creep." I collapsed to my knees and wept silently in that frigid jail cell, questioning everything about the father I'd been. 3 days later, they released me, no evidence to hold me. But the damage was done. My colleagues shunned me without knowing the truth, and I lost my job. I'd expected this. Who wants to work alongside an accused rapist, especially one who supposedly abused his own daughter? When I returned home, I discovered Anna and Nancy had cleared out everything valuable. I could hear Anna's voice echoing through the empty rooms. "All of this came from your grandparents' money. Let's take it. They left me nothing because of your father. I couldn't be there for you because of your father. Now, my daughter, we can finally be together." Watching that security footage revealed exactly where I'd failed as a parent. I'd sheltered Nancy too much. The video showed their scheme clear as day: take me to court, transfer custody to Anna, and give her control over both Nancy and her trust fund. That's when I finally broke down and cried. Those tears cleansed my mind and heart, washing away all the pain, heartache, and lingering hope I'd held for my daughter. I called my lawyer, the same one my in-laws had used, and filed a restraining order against my ex-wife and daughter, using all the court proceedings and Nancy's false allegations as evidence. I gave up fighting for Nancy's custody, but I placed her trust fund under the lawyer's control. Anna exploded when she heard the news. "This is unfair. Why should I get stuck with this money-wasting burden without her trust fund too? This isn't fair. I want both, not just her. If I can only have one thing, I'd rather control the trust fund." Nancy stared at her mother, mouth agape, hands trembling at her sides. She put on her poker face, but how could I not recognize my own daughter's tells? After the judgment, I moved states. At 37, I had to rebuild my entire life from scratch. Nancy was 17 the last time I saw her. Nancy's POV. At 14, I met my mother, a beautiful, elegant woman who seemed almost ethereal. I'd always been called a motherless child, a pain I carried throughout my life in silence. I didn't want to hurt my dad or grandparents, so I hid the ache, keeping this wound from festering. But when I met Anna, I felt whole for the first time in my life. She spun me a fairy tale about what had happened all those years ago. In her version, she was the victim. Against my better judgment, I chose to believe her over the man who had raised me and loved me unconditionally. My mother was a drama queen, and Anna taught me how to perform. The stage was the courtroom, and the play featured an abused daughter testifying against her father.
She coached me on where to pinch myself, what to say, and who to complain to. I was a blank canvas, hanging on her every word and gesture. This made me the perfect target for her manipulation. I followed my mother's script, but with each performance, I felt a piece of myself withering away. I grew numb with every action I took against my dad. At the final hearing, I could barely recognize my father. He was no longer the man I knew. It wasn't a change in his appearance, but a shift in his eyes and voice. All of his warmth had vanished. I wanted to run into his arms and beg for forgiveness. But I couldn't betray Anna, my long-lost mother. Even when she tried to abandon me in that courtroom, I didn't flinch. She loves me. There couldn't be any other reason she came back into my life. She wouldn't hurt me twice, right? I desperately wanted to believe this. I tuned out the voices in the court and everything around me. My father left me the house I grew up in as his parting gift. Meanwhile, my mother moved in with her boyfriend and 3 friends. The mansion felt cramped as each friend brought their significant others along. Slowly, my mother began mistreating me to the point where I became more of a maid than the homeowner. I desperately wanted to call my father, but I couldn't. The restraining order prevented any contact. One evening after returning from school, my mom, drunk and furious, started physically assaulting me. She punched me until I was covered in bruises, blue and black from head to toe. The next morning, as I walked onto the school premises, everyone stared. Teachers approached me, asking if my dad was back. I remembered all the accusations I had made against my father, and I began laughing hysterically until I passed out. That night, my mom attacked me again. "Why are you such a drama queen? Did you have to go to school looking like that? Stop embarrassing me. Remember, don't say anything or else." Later that same night, my mother's lover walked into my room. I pretended to be asleep as he caressed my cheeks and left. I woke up drenched in sweat. I can't keep living like this. But where can I go? Who can I trust? It feels like I fell from heaven straight into hell. The next morning, I called the lawyer my father had left me. When he answered, he asked, "Miss, is this about your withdrawal of the emergency funds from the trust fund? I'm not sure why you withdrew 50% of the fund. Are you okay? Your mom requested the funds on your behalf. She fulfilled all the requirements since you had signed the documents." I dropped the phone. This was my punishment. Karma had struck way too fast. Why couldn't it come with a warning? I told the lawyer I'd call him the next day. Moving trucks woke me up the following morning. Walking downstairs in my pajamas, I asked, "What are you all doing in my house?" "Miss, you should have moved out by today according to the notice and the contract we signed." I never authorized any contracts. But it was all there, documented. I contacted the lawyer, who arrived promptly. After several conversations and phone calls, I discovered that as my guardian, my mom had also mortgaged my house, my mansion. Now I was homeless, with no savings and no access to my inheritance or trust funds. I'd lost contact with friends who distanced themselves because of how my attitude and behavior had changed after my father left. The weight of my isolation crashed down on me. Then the lawyer told me something that shattered what little pride I had left. My father had said if I ever needed him, he'd be there for me. This was the final nail in my coffin of regret. It had been 2 years since we last spoke. I was now 19 and had dropped out immediately after he left. The only thing I had left was my grandparents' letter. It was both comforting and prophetic. How did they know I might end up like this? As I broke down, the lawyer informed me that my dad would pay boarding school fees and living expenses for 2 years if I wanted that. I recognized this as an olive branch he'd extended to ensure I could access the inheritance and find stability in my life. Despite everything I'd done, I felt loved again, knowing he'd been secretly watching over me all this time. I accepted his offer and silently promised I would become the daughter he could be proud of. My dad, James, got married and soon had triplets, 2 sons and 1 daughter. He married a woman who seemed perfect for him, and I felt genuinely happy for him, wishing him all the joy he deserved. After taking my SATs, I scored 1580 and got into Harvard. Now I had full access to the trust fund and inheritance. That's when I discovered my dad had kept his entire inheritance from my grandparents in a separate trust fund for me, one I was meant to access at 31, along with a letter. To my dear Nancy, I loved you and cared for you with all my heart. I didn't want to burden you with adult problems. But in protecting you, you became too sheltered. Although I know you have strong ethics and morals, I believe you might be vulnerable to corruption. That's why we're here now. Don't blame yourself. Don't regret anything. To fall is human. Just grow stronger with each stumble. You can be better, and as you grow, spread your wings further. I love you now and always. Please be wise with your finances. Reading those words broke something open inside me. At 25, I had slightly over $120 million in liquid assets. Without hesitation, I took 45% of those funds and created 3 trust funds for my younger siblings, who were now 6 years old. I knew these would be my only siblings, as my dad had gotten a vasectomy after their birth. We'd never met, but I'd been watching over them from afar. During their birthdays and holidays, my dad would give them extra gifts under my name. Because of this, they came to know and love me. My dad never forgot me. He always loved me and included me in his life. With this knowledge, I made a vow to love him from a distance, protecting his peace and that of his family. Around this time, I learned that my mother had been robbed and killed by her lover. When I heard this news, I felt neither shocked nor heartbroken. The end.